Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, acting. Indeed. Allow me first to commend you, Mr. Speaker, for your management of the House from that high seat. However, I know coming near to the end of the sectoral debate, you have had a long stay at the wicket, and we will test your patience today. But of course, there are some positives. Today is almost a Western day. I think the three of us are speaking from the West. And I'd like to note, so I understand that you listen more keenly to things on the gray side of the air and hear it more clearly, so you won't get tired. I'd like to further thank, yes, that side is more alert. I'd like to thank the leader and our Prime Minister for his continued confidence in me, especially. Yeah. All right.
Dr. Chang,
In
you
my
may
capacity to manage
let us
change.
have your next mic on the other side.
I'd like to further thank
Use
I
the
think
one on your right
the chin
side.
seat. The speaker. Yeah. The speaker. All right. I know. All right. You want the better view. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'd like to further thank our leader. Yes. Indeed. No. No, all right. No, Derek. I'd like to thank the leader and Prime Minister for his continued confidence in me, especially in my continued capacity to manage change, as I did effectively on the 25th of February 2016. By assigning to be a ministry which is primarily responsible to implement policy changes that will bring growth to the economy. Thanks to my immediate family for their support, Paulette and my daughter Melissa, who could not be here today, my son Martin, both of whom have had to put up with the vagaries of politics since their birth. I want to thank them for their support they have given me during this time. I will thank the team from the ministry for their professionalism, support, and their capacity to handle change. It's a new ministry, led by one of Jamaica's finest public servants, Permanent Secretary Ms. Audrey Sewell. To my extended political family, of course, special thank you. My councillors, Senator Charles Sinclair, Leora Williams, Candace Joshua Cummings, David Brown, a management team led by Mr. Norman Brown, my colleagues in the West, my cluster managers, supervisors, election day workers, fundraisers, my personal staff, driver, the constituency officer. They are here today, Mr. Speaker, because I want to say with an apology, this is one of the finest political teams anywhere in the island. And this, we'll discuss the order. But we'll say, and I include my colleagues, they can take some special credits for putting us on this side and putting those on the other side on this occasion. The impact of Northwest St. James is well known. It's a constituency of influence. We elected the first female member of parliament back in 1944. Of course, after that, we had outstanding members of parliament, political leaders in A.J.S. Coombs and Sir Howard Cook and Francis Tulloh. But I can take pride in the fact that today I'm the first member of parliament to have been elected 4 consecutive elections. By a majority of over 3,000 votes. I would like to think that, Mr. Speaker, the show has extended across St. James and Hanover. We took 5 of 7, and in fairness, my colleague would say heavy raincoats hang over the south and could fall at any time. It is true to Mr. Speaker that I am in the autumn of my political years, but I want to assure my colleagues on this side and to those on the other side, some of whom I want to take the lady's crown a little bit early. Don't be too intemperate. Given the portfolio I happen to hold, I'll be ensuring that there's enough water to ensure that the West remains green for a long, long time. The trees we plant are evergreen. There'll be no autumn colors to lighten the mood. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the areas of water, housing, ports, highway development contribute and drive the process of growth in the economy and bring prosperity to our people. I have particular responsibility for several areas of the infrastructure portfolio. This year, we expect to create a paradigm shift in governance, generating what could be termed a virtuous circle in reducing business transactions, costs of transaction, foster transparency, reduce corruption, and the abuse of power. Mr. Speaker, I will outline initiatives and the approaches which we are taking in the ministry that deals with these infrastructure areas, for which I have responsibility. These are likely to have wide-ranging social implications and economic impact. We intend to change, Mr. Speaker, and bring growth to our country. There are few areas of investment that have more direct impact on our country's capacity to grow, to generate jobs, and to deliver prosperity to its citizens and investment in infrastructure. The ports are of particular importance in small island developing states. A model way of reference to Singapore. They are the channels through which we are connected to the global trade system and are themselves an important source of employment. Ports are an important barometer of economic activity in any country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I begin my presentation by taking a look at the ports and our shipping industry. Any review of our economic history will demonstrate that we have had episodes of growth and increasing wealth when our ports are active. In the early years, the shipping of bananas, sugar, logwood, cocoa, and other agricultural products made Jamaica the prize colony of Britain. The port of Kingston was dominant, but there may be as much as 10 other active ports across the island. In that era, there was a shipping outlet of goods, but local traders provided ship supply services to the ships and generated significant employment and wealth in various parts of Jamaica. The era of modern ports began back in the mid-60s with the emergence of containerization. As a result, new berthing facilities were built and bauxite shipping, of course, emerged in rural areas, replacing banana and sugar, Port Esquivel and Kaiser. For these, our local traders again provided ship supply services and other maritime activity which continued to show wealth, and we'll recall, for more reasons than one, what has stirred the post-independence growth in the economy. The increasing number of container vessels which offered economies of scale has resulted in the rise of a hub-and-spoke type operation. Marine services are now focused on modern ports, equipped to handle the larger ships, and major ports have become transshipment ports as the cargoes was moved to smaller regional ports by smaller feeder vessels. The evolution of this process into even larger port facilities led to an increasing number of near-port services in manufacturing, maritime services, warehousing, and has driven the need to modernize and expand the Kingston Terminal Port and begin the process of moving into a logistics economy. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the long-awaited transfer of the management and operation and development of KCT to KFTL, the Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited, was accomplished on the 1st of July as targeted. The operators of KCT were placed in the hands of the Kingston Freeport Terminal, a Jamaican company established by the parent company, CMA CGM, the third largest shipping company in the world, and who have just acquired the Singapore shipping line and have for themselves an associated logistic arm. I'd like to pause to commend the former minister who carried this discussion for a number of years and make special mention of the closing of this deal, because indeed, the last mile, as they say, is the most difficult. And I think special mention must be made of two individuals who are not in this House. The former minister is here, but Ambassador Nigel Clark and Professor Gordon Shirley of the port, who handled the closing aspect of this deal. Mr. Speaker, I know the country fully appreciate the seminal nature of this particular act, and all who have been associated, start a long time, need to be commended and appreciated. The company will have the capital, expertise, and international connection to drive development of KCT, not only doubling its expansion in the first phase to accommodate the Neo-Panamax vessels, which, just for information, these vessels, compared to current vessels, are carrying anywhere from up to 14 to 20,000 containers, while the current vessels at the largest carry about 3,000, to give you an idea of the kind of difference we're dealing with and why it leads to so much in terms of the potential and opportunities for development in the economic sphere. It will capitalize on our location in the middle of the hemisphere, which is the nexus of some 800 million people, but less than 2 hours from the largest economy in the world, North America. It will leverage Kingston's geostrategic position, its proximity to the north, south, east, and west shipping lanes. Expanding maritime service will include new equipment to deal with the new ships, additional tug services. Ship supply will become a major part of the economic opportunities in the corporate area. Near-port logistics activity, including manufacturing, warehousing, and of course financial, legal, and other management services, will provide quality jobs and opportunities for Jamaican firms. Mr. Speaker, this is where we begin to move into what is termed logistics. It's not an event, it's a process. The most important aspect of modern shipping, in fact, industry, is a large degree of correlation between cargo, logistics, and economic growth. Over 80% of the world's cargo is transported by sea. We need an operator who can face the economic, financial, competitive, and operational challenges of such a port. This is what CMA CGM brings to it. A French company, I think the French ambassador in the audience, and they have demonstrated their capacity and ability. This is critical to effective participation in any logistic development, which is a prerequisite for growth in this part of the island. The PAG Port Authority, of course, is driving the development of a port community system, which is an essential part of the competitive process. So, Speaker, I pause because one of the historical facts of the last 20, 30 years is that the corporate area into St. Catherine was seen as we still have more than half of our population, large block of economic activity, has seen major disinvestment. Many reasons will be cast. I will not seek to blame or otherwise, but as a fact of history. In fact, much development took place in the north and west. The tourism sector grew. The Montego Bay Airport became the biggest investment in infrastructure. And the growth in that area and foreign investment took place in many aspects in those areas. Information technology, of course, spread across the island. But we did not see the kind of significant growth that one would have expected from the level of foreign direct investment, because much disinvestment took place in these areas, leading to urban decay, apathy, and serious social problems here. The divestment and development of this major port can in fact lead to a reversal of much of what took place in this Kingston metropolitan region. We are moving indeed, Mr. Speaker, from transshipment to port logistics and maritime services in a big way. We intend to ensure that economic activity and opportunity is revived in this part of the island, and our people can begin to realize their dreams and see the hope for prosperity return to them. Market surveys have identified potential investors in the near-port facilities for various sectors already: retail, consumer products, dry docking, ship repair, bunkering services, even the automobile industry, which will offer opportunities for Jamaican business. Discussions are already being held with such companies as Flagler Global Logistics, a subsidiary of the New Fortress Energy Group, with whom a memorandum of understanding has already been finalized for accelerated implementation of logistics facilities both in Montego Bay and to a much bigger extent in Kingston. Similar MOUs are being concluded with the companies interested in dry dock and bunkering services. There will be hundreds of new skilled, semi-skilled jobs that are expected to be created on completion of this activity. Logistics, Mr. Speaker, as I said before, is not an event, it's not a secretariat, it's a process that in today's world begins with a modern, competitive port, as we are now doing in KCT, and requires effective planning and timely decisions on the various issues and steps to be taken. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that an increasing volume will create added opportunities as you grow, and the intention is to expand the port from 1.3 TU to 3 initially. But as you begin to grow, an opportunity arises and shipping expand, you'll begin to have a demand for the kind of logistic facilities that requires what we call near-market reassembly, the customization of goods, and sometimes the sensitive high-end goods. And the need for on-time supply will require air freight in the mix. And that's when you get to the point of having a full logistics center. It will be this stage that we can begin to attract the freight handlers like UPS, DHL. And maybe if we continue to pursue this in a rational, logical manner and set the appropriate legal and policy framework, we may attract some of the new age traders like Amazon. And when these operators arise, that's when you begin to get, as I said, a genuine logistics operation that will create wealth and change the entire Jamaican economy, in particular in the Southeast. Cruise tourism, of course, Mr. Speaker, brings thousands of visitors and is a modern feature of the shipping industry. They come from across the world. It's an area of great potential for job creation. We have a Minister of Tourism to make sure the tourists want to come here. Cruise tourism is growing rapidly across the globe, and the Caribbean continues to be a favored destination. This region can be expected to see increased visitor arrivals in view of some of the challenges elsewhere. The opening of Cuba is likely to boost traffic in the Northern Caribbean, and Jamaica stands to benefit as the primary hub for cruise shipping in this region. We can be a center of both the northern and southern routes, and so our major cruise ports are being expanded so that we are ready to accommodate the increased volume with all the modern services required for cruise ship. Montego Bay, in addition, is becoming a major center for home porting. It's a genuine multipurpose port with an LNG terminal, liquefied natural gas, and an increasingly active cargo terminal. So we'll be improving Montego Bay by ensuring that the cargo berth can accommodate container ships, expanding the cruise shipping piers to 3 that they can accommodate 3 ships at any one time. And the capital has been identified. Architectural work and engineering contracts have been identified, and our plans are well advanced to ensure that Montego Bay becomes a major player in our shipping industry. Shoreside improvements have been initiated in Falmouth, and work on Ocherous is well advanced to ensure that Ocherous too can accommodate 3 cruise ship piers. In fact, the architects to modify the Reynolds Pier and improve the entire waterfront has been awarded, has been identified, contracts have been tendered, and work will begin in Ocherous this year. Ocherous will become one of the prime cruise destinations. We are ensuring, Mr. that when the Minister of Tourism markets to Jamaica, we have the facilities to accommodate the volume. I did thank the gentleman, sir. It's a process. It started there, but concluding the deal is always the trick. We are concluding the deal. We are making the things happen. Free zone, Mr. Speaker, is an operation involving the renting of commercial space for warehousing and business process operation. Point out, the Port Authority has been a pioneer in this area. In the fiscal year 2015-16, occupancy level for the 1.4 million square foot of space owned by the Port Authority was 92.3%. Foreign currency earnings for the period was over $142.9 million, representing an increase of $2.6 million over the prior period. The Montego Bay and Kingston Free Zone account for 50% of business process space in Jamaica. The Port Authority will be investing another $4.1 billion over the next 2 years to have additional space, but they have concluded arrangements with the Flag Global Logistics to build additional space in both Montego Bay and Kingston. But, Mr. Speaker, I have decided to speak on this for a short time in my presentation because business process operations are often viewed by those who are not as familiar with the service as call centers offering cheap labor, as we did with section of the government some time ago. This, Mr. Speaker, is a grave misconception. In fact, we are now speaking about business process management to send a different signal because this is maybe the most rapidly growing service area in the entire world, an area where Jamaica can take advantage of our location and generate hundreds of thousands of jobs. The industry has moved in new direction, Mr. Speaker, emphasizing less voice, but requiring highly skilled professionals in health, finance, and computing skills that will require and provide quality employment opportunities for post-secondary and graduate students at all levels, if offered the appropriate policy framework and facilities. Industry movement, in fact, is speaking about social, mobile, analytic, and cloud technologies, which requires high levels of skills and significant training. This, of course, is still leveraging our location like the ports do, because we're nearest to the largest economy in the world and the one that uses business process management more than anybody else. The significant growth and expansion of purpose-built space by the PAJ will cater towards the emergence of business process management. Much of our current space is a modification of old factory space, warehousing space, which are not considered the most appropriate space. The new direction of the Port Authority is critical to ensure that Jamaica becomes a major player in this very significant and expanding service economy. This indeed, Mr. Speaker, is the kind of change that brings growth. And we can be confident that Jamaica will have a competitive advantage in healthcare outsourcing. This is a rapidly growing service valued at over $14.1 billion, expected to grow to $22 billion by 2018. And the United States of America is, of course, the largest source of business process management service in healthcare provider, pharmaceutical outsourcing, and medical coding. What this means, Mr. Speaker, is that Jamaicans, professionals, can be employed at home in Jamaica to serve patients and elsewhere and in the developed societies. They will be able to earn significant salaries, which mean that they can live, work, and raise their families in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, this is prosperity for Jamaica. Our health professionals will not have to go to the cold climates and hunger for warm back home after retirement. This era, Mr. Speaker, I could speak at length, but this, I want to assure the House, is a dynamic era we have identified of opportunity that we will ensure is provided with the requisite resources to grow the economy of Jamaica and brings prosperity home. I turn now, Mr. Speaker, to the issue of water. Water in the modern world, faced with climate change and other challenges, is a most important natural resource that has to be managed efficiently in order to provide a foundation not only for economic growth, but for a good quality of life. Water has to be produced, distributed, and in fact treated after it is used, and then returned to the environment in one way or the other. It is indeed the most complex of the utilities, and maybe this is why we have been faced with so many challenges over the years. Most of our potable water comes from the National Water Commission. The National Irrigation Commission provides water for farmers' agricultural production. Unfortunately, the sector has been characterized by much frustration, inconvenience, and oftentimes public demonstration, where it has either been failed by our utility or become a victim of poor policy decisions. Most of our employees are highly skilled professionals. So it is for this reason that while we pursue an aggressive program to increase production, increase efficiency and reliability, we'll have to take a transformational look, especially at the Water Commission. The Water Commission is a company that has a cash flow of some $27 billion per year and a projected investment program to ensure reliability of some 37 billion Jamaican dollars, $3 billion US dollars. So it will increase or decrease depending on the valuation. Its management and policy direction cannot be subject to a continuous 5-year election cycle as has been the practice. We need greater continuity. This government is a firm believer that Jamaicans should have a real stake in their assets. Therefore, a significant amount of a company like the Water Commission could be put on the stock market. This does not mean absolute privatization of the NWC. The public, represented by the government, will have controlling interests, but individual Jamaicans will have a stake in the company. This kind of organization will allow the company to have access to less costly multilateral funding and grants, while market forces, as determined by market, will ensure efficiency and continuity. The Water Commission cannot be subject to the swings of the political pendulum, which has had some very damaging effects on its organization. Our primary objective, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that our customers are protected and the country is served with a reliable and credible organization. Among the low-hanging fruits, and maybe the first thing we will be doing, and again, this is some continuity here, the funding for this particular operation was identified by a previous administration in which I was a part in 2011. Unfortunately, implementation was extended over a prolonged period. But our primary objective today is to ensure customers will have a level of drought resilience that is acceptable. The drought is well known and predictable. We should not be subject to water lockoffs every year between December and March. That is wrong. Our drought, Mr. Speaker, is not the result of climate change. Since I was a baby, we have been having dry season between December and March. And it was the year before as well. and on. From the days of the Arawaks. We therefore want to begin, agreed. But, you know, the Chinese history is 5,000 years old, continuous. So, recorded history. We want to begin by ensuring that we reduce non-revenue water. We intend to take this from current 65% to less than 30% over 3 years. The contract was in fact signed for 5 years. I've instructed and requested that this be compressed to 3 years, and we have had the agreement of the contractors. The Kings, it will not totally, I'll outline. But in the Kingston metropolitan area alone, we'll be spending $7 billion on correcting non-revenue water. The contract is signed, the Israeli engineering firm Maya is in place and have started to work. We expect to achieve our targets over 36 months. Complementary to this, we'll be changing some of our major transmission lines which are part of the source of our problem. Lines on the way, Mandela Highway, Spanish Town, Mandela Highway, Washington Boulevard, Stanton Terrace, Tamarisco Road, Constant Spring Road, Dunrobin Avenue. All these are major distribution lines that are old and leaky and must be changed to complement the entire program. We will do it. But NRW alone is not the answer to our resilience. In the KMA region, we are advanced in our planning to implement a new 15 million gallons per day treatment plant at Content in the Rehoboth Valley. This project was identified to be done on the Jamaica Water Sector Improvement Project. The funds had to be reallocated. We are now moving to implement it through a private-public partnership program in which a private company, after extensive negotiation led by DBJ with the Water Commission, Development Bank of Jamaica, and we have support from the Inter-American Development Bank to ensure we get value for money, and of course the Ministry of Finance, which has ultimate responsibility for these negotiations. They will design, finance, construct, and maintain the plant for at least 15 years, at the end of which it will revert to the Water Commission. That water will be selling at the same price as we are now selling. Firm that we are discussing with a firm, another French firm, Vinci Construction, who has been here before. Right? Mr. Speaker, at the same time we are doing that, we have already had discussion and engaged the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Inter-American Development Bank, to have consultants assigned to us to examine all the investment projects of the Water Commission, to indicate and plan what is most suitable for private-public partnership and what should be done in the public sector investment program and through the Water Commission. In addition to that, we are asking them not only plan the project, but we are well known for planning without implementing. And in consultation with our multilateral partners and the PIOJ and finance, we will plan a schedule of implementation, so that while something will not be done this year, I'll be able to indicate to this House and its members when they are being done, and it follows a structured program. Private-public partnership, Mr. Speaker, has to be a part of not only engaging the private sector, it is in the face of our fiscal challenge a more affordable investment plan. We are not ignoring the rural areas, Mr. Speaker. We have to improve the quality of life in rural Jamaica to enhance rural development. The provision of adequate, reliable supplies of potable water is an integral part of this. We have identified over 35 projects, in fact over 30, that will achieve much of our goals. There has been some delay. I will identify those that will begin this year. Places like Cascade, Claremont, and Jericho in East Hanover will be completed. It was started. We inherited. Mr. Brown will have showers. I got the money. In St. Elizabeth, we will put the final phase of the Essex Valley project, the lift station at Nain, on a business-sensitive program so that they can get water by December of this year. We'll complete that. We will. No. I started it, you inherit and give it back. That's all right. We will initiate the House of the Party, New Market, long delayed and ignored, Black River expansion, Darlington over to Mills Waters. St. Elizabeth will have reliable showers. In Trelawney, Samuel Prospect the Barnhill is about to start. On my instruction, the engineering designs for the Quashie River water supply in South Trelawney is being completed and prepared for tendering. It will be done. All right? Albert Town also included. In St. Catherine, the Gold Mine water supply project will be completed. Kitchetown distribution will be expanded to provide for that entire area. The Connors Ginger water supply program will also be taken on this year. In St. Mary, Itaborila Gualta Vale will be dealt with this financial year. That will bring water to an area extending from southeast St. Mary in Richmond right back to Buff Bay in western Portland. The Itaboril well is a very productive well and the Gualta Vale spring system. In St. Mary, Mesa Hall will complete the engineering works this year to prepare for tendering, and also in Derry and Hazard. In Clarendon, Miss River, Kellett, Reckford and Johns Hall. In the west, it will be tendered this year. The supply for the non-Peril Orange area in Western Westmoreland. We're not going to give you any victimization. We are looking after you down there. And that project, a very large project, will be completed to bring relief to the residents of Negril, the Jamaican residents of Negril. The Whitehall treatment plant supply system in St. Thomas, Green Park in St. Ann, Moravia in northern Manchester and Clarendon, Clydesdale in St. Andrew should begin work very soon in the Hills Mavis Bank. Norwood and Canaan Well. And the Canaan Well, Mr. Speaker, is a rural supply, has the capacity, when attached to the Wakefield supply, to go right across East Central St. James. The last big project we intend to pursue is that of the North Coast Water Supply, where it is known that resort and residential development is growing in a dramatic fashion. Thousands of hotel rooms and residences are being built out there. So we intend to move quickly to initiate a new 15 million gallon plant at Ryabuno and extend the trunk line from Runaway Bay to Oakhurst to ensure that there is a reliable supply of water and that there will be no impairment of development on the North Coast. And both residents and visitors will have reliable water. The connection between, you're not listening, the link between Oakhurst and Negril will allow there some level of redundancy and that we can always ensure water is available to all areas. Old Harbour, Mayfield and Mandeville on the southeast coast section of the island are areas that have seen significant neglect in the area of water and sewage. We are completing the planning and, in fact, having discussions with our major multilateral partner, Inter-American Development Bank, to seek the funding to ensure we can bring reliable supply and ultimately sewer treatment to these three large cities on the southeastern coast. Wastewater project, Mr. Speaker, is an important part of dealing with water. We are closing some decrepit, smelly, malfunctioning wastewater plants in Portmore, Bridgeport, Independence City, Hamilton Gardens, Portmore Villas, Christian Gardens, and bringing the water into Soapberry. However, we are pursuing an active program to privatize Central Wastewater Treatment Company, a private-public partnership. And the concessionaire will be required not only to acquire the plant, but to double its capacity, build a septage plant, and ensure that the water is treated to a level that will be utilizable in the irrigation of the cane fields of South St. Catherine. We cannot return water to waste just like that. We will ensure also content past that long time. Right? The planned development in the new Soapberry operation will be able to accommodate planned development in St. Catherine and expansion of the sewer collector system in the corporate area. Again, that discussion is proceeding with the full team, enterprise team from the Development Bank and others, and the rates will be determined by OER, okay, at the end of the day. The final thing I speak to on wastewater treatment, Mr. Speaker, is that I want to turn to a very vexed question. There's dire need for adequate sewer treatment collection downtown Kingston. The sewer collector system in downtown Kingston is critical. It is essential if we are to achieve any major urban renewal program. This government, and my ministry in particular, will not tolerate the stage where there is frequent overflow of sewage in our capital. We have to show greater respect for the dignity of our people. The trunk maze must be changed. The line on North Street, Harbour Street, and Law Street must be changed to bring relief to the humble residents of Central and Western Kingston. We'll begin with an initial investment of about $3 billion on North Street, but it requires much more money. We'll require in the region of 150 million US, maybe more. And we are ensuring we find the funding to do that because the rehabilitation of the sewer collector system in the corporate area is a critical step in bringing about urban renewal in the corporate area. This will be not only reduced, at least. could be as high as $200 million we go in. The systems are old. Many of the main trunk lines, and the Minister walked in, will tell you, are made of brick canals, not pipes, are over 100 years old. It will reduce the pollution, and we might be able to recover some of the wells that are currently in the carpet area. And Kingston Harbour, too, will be in better shape. The Water Commission is implementing other projects in sewer collector system in Boscobel, Elson Flats, Blackwood Gardens, Lionel Town, De La Vega City, Arcadia, Huenden, and Bay Farm Villa. We are giving our people a better environment. Work will be done soon in Torspen, Eltham and Horizon, in the western Spanish Town. And the Negril wastewater treatment will in fact be relocated. And work is starting to produce the RFP to get that done on PPP. It's all set out, and I'll give you a book to demonstrate. Finally, Mr. Speaker, but not least, I say times all nine. By no means least, the most efficient way and the quickest way to increase production in the short term is to provide water to our hard-working farmers on the southern plains, St. Elizabeth, South St. Catherine, and South Clarendon. The Essex Valley, a relatively small part of the program, has already had funding. It will be done in association with the Ministry of Agriculture, who are seeking to put in an agro-economic zone. Part of that particular project, of course, of interest coming out of the Caribbean Infrastructure Fund. We'll be using money there to put in a renewable energy plant for the irrigation company, that they can have sustainability in their supply of water. The consultants are examining whether it is best to do solar or build 2 additional wind farms in the St. Elizabeth area. But we'll ensure that they have energy, because the water supply in St. Elizabeth is in deep aquifers and therefore costly to produce. Mr. Speaker, the engineers from the Rural Water Supply Company have linked with the NIC and are working with the Ministry of Industrial, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries to look at what is required to increase reliability and expand irrigation in southern Clarendon, south and central St. Catherine and St. Elizabeth. I know for sure we are looking and hope to conclude those plans in time to access the Caribbean Infrastructure Fund by the end of July, that we can begin work in other sections of St. Elizabeth, especially in the Pedro area, and to bring improvement to Amity in St. Catherine and Kitchtown in St. Catherine. Those are all highly productive areas that if they get water, we'll see immediate response. The proposal, in fact, Mr. Speaker, is to put the entire irrigation improvement program on what is called a business-sensitive procurement process, otherwise sometimes called emergency procurement. We think we can be justified because the infrastructure fund is for 3 years, and we do not want any delays in the process. We'll, of course, have to find a way to justify it to the Contracts Commission. I think we're correct here. Mr. Speaker, we're identifying the goals and taking necessary steps to ensure that they are achieved and there will be growth and prosperity. I'm going to skip the whole section. Mr. Speaker, growth, 5 minutes. Growth, Mr. Speaker, is the calling cry of this administration. And while we'll have to wait to see how the policies and the institution changes implement and maintain the long run, I think we're having success already. In fact, the language of our public servants and the country has already changed. Only last week, the member from that side in St. Anne used grow as his topic for his presentation. It is no longer austerity and fiscal responsibility, which is still important and must be maintained, but the culture is that we must grow. That was the objective of this ministry, and we are doing it. But, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister outlined a fulsome series of activity on housing and through the Housing Trust. I'll only make 2 comments. We'll be emphasizing, without any apology, a program of private-public partnerships and joint venture programs in the housing sector. We do not believe the government should be so actively involved in the provision of housing. Mobilize private capital, private technology, and competitive activity, we think we can achieve our targets of nearing 10,000 housing starts per year. I'll give you one other comment. The housing agency has been in news again and reflects some of what we intend to do. 5 minutes. If you want to give me
The member's time for speaking has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the minister's time be extended by 5 minutes to allow him to conclude his presentation.
Thank you.
The question is that the member's time be extended by 5 minutes. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Dr. Chang.
Thank you. Coming. The final thing, Mr. Speaker, we have had to take some very dramatic steps at the housing agency. It's not only that they got to a lost position after we think we had brought them back to some profitability, losing some $2.9 billion in 3 years and projected to lose $900 million this year. But more critically, and the former minister did take some steps to try and bring some correction, I know, the audit reports show some glaring and almost embarrassing maladministration in the financial sector. There are one or two things I'll mention, those small, an example of the kind of activities that may not have come to the attention of the public. In one case, the chief engineer of the company, full-time employed, earning a very decent salary, in fact in excess of $6 million a year, turned out to be the full-time project engineer on the Royalton project in Negril, which actually collapsed. It was a full-time staff engineer of the HAJ who was employed there for over a year. That's the kind of activity taking place in the agency of government to have referred to. So no wonder, Mr. Speaker, they tried to build a house for $5 million that ended up costing $11 million. And we still have to sell it for 11 at Lorna and St. Elizabeth. I'd sell it for 5. I could go into many other areas. It's not my style to dig into the intrigue. The audit reports should be made available and the public will be made aware. We have had to separate ourselves from the entire management staff of that company and look at repositioning it, remissioning it, and realigning the entire housing institutions to see how we can, in fact, engage the private sector in achieving the targets for housing. I'd also like to mention, Mr. Speaker, as far as works is concerned, the Minister of State will expand our vision on the road network when he speaks tomorrow. But I have to mention that this government will be taking steps to ensure Montego Bay gets its perimeter road and bypass, otherwise some call it. Because Montego Bay is our primary port of entry for tourism, Sangster International Airport, a cruise shipping port, a cargo port, and the center for business process management. It will choke in the present traffic situation. We have had the consultant designing a new route and will find the funding to bring about relief in the Montego Bay operation. Start growing and we'll deal with it. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation understands that development is not an event, Mr. Speaker. It's a process. A process that must be based on sensible planning, strong institutions that are transparent and credible. It must be accommodated by the legal and regulatory framework with efficiency and competence in all areas. This is the only basis, Mr. Speaker, on which we can develop a growing, sustainable economy. Mr. Speaker, home ownership is critical. We will adjust the housing agencies to ensure, the housing institutions, to ensure that there be access to home ownership by Jamaicans. It's only this way that they can talk about eliminating garrisons. Some people speak about knocking down garrisons. Foolishness. If we give people ownership and a stake in what they own, we'll have the change attitude that we require and values. That's the mission of this government. Mr. Speaker, with the National Water Commission going on the stock market, contractors will not see contracts in the Water Commission. It's free money to run overrunning contracts. The Ministry of Economic Job and Growth Creation, because of cross-cutting mechanism, will ensure, with other ministries and agents, to reduce bureaucratic red tape, enhance business facilitation, and create the synergies needed for economic growth. when individuals can go home after a hard day's work for a cold shower instead of having to endure water lockoffs, when they don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn to catch water, when they don't have to contend with sewer in their backyards and on their streets, when they don't have to block the roads for lack of water, when they don't have to have no irrigation for the crops and can find jobs to buy their homes, then we'll foster a society in which people will feel that they are stakeholders. Then we'll see, Mr. Speaker, a change in values and attitudes. More people have civic pride, patriotism, and engage in volunteerism and mentoring. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is about more than its name suggests. It is about building a new Jamaica, one that is strong, proud, free, and cohesive. A place where we'll want to live, work, raise families, and do business. May God bless our beloved island.